Welcome to the special council meeting for May the 27th, 2024. Just a reminder, everybody, that the meeting will be recorded for public access and broadcast. With that, can I have a motion to adopt the agenda for the meeting? Moved by Deputy Mayor Gallant, seconded by Councillor Toure. Questions to the motion? No questions to the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded, motion carried. With that, if there's any conflict of interest, there's declaration papers in the middle of the table. Please fill it in and pass it into the clerk with indicating why you have that conflict. With that, let's move on to item number 4, reports from the administration.
Number 1, if you want to pull it up, the exciting topic of conversation this evening, a proposed award for Tender Sols 2024-09, the Salisbury Fire Rescue Station. Let's switch to the next one, Diane. We I guess are here for a special meeting tonight, obviously before our committee of the whole meeting, to go through the proposed Salisbury Fire Rescue Station award. This is more of a reminder or of a summary of some of the steps that have been taken since council's last update, which was on November 2nd in another special meeting, when we reached the point of going to the MCBB, or the Municipal Capital Borrowing Board. So between January and March, the design team was busy with the construction document side of things, so doing their area of expertise, getting ready for tendering. On January 10th is the date where our full FCM application was submitted. So in November, we had direction from council to submit the application. It goes through a pre-application process, and it was approved right around the holidays, and the full application was submitted there on the 10th. We've since done geothermal test wells, tendered, obviously, and then obviously we are here again today for a proposed award for the facility. If you go to the next slide, again, as a reminder, we're not diving into all the logistics of this building, but it is important to note that the building as designed is what we call net zero ready. So based on direction from council, we've submitted, as mentioned, applications to FCM's Green Municipal Building Fund, which is a funding opportunity for municipalities that reach certain environmental targets. And with limited opportunities for funding for fire halls, it was an opportune time to tap into some funding mechanisms, but also show some environmental leadership at the same time. And we're trying to target what we're calling net zero ready, which means that the building will be able to become net zero. The solar panels is the perfect example of what that means. So there are no solar panels on site, but the building is wired to plug them in, and there's spot on the site plan for them in the future. And the easiest way to summarize it is that with the issued for tender drawings, the energy consumption is down about 40%, which is operational cost savings to the tune of about $20,000 per year. And again, that's with the building as designed. Next slide. Funding pieces before we dive into the recommendation on the floor. In November, at that special meeting on the 2nd, we had approval from council to apply to the Municipal Capital Borrowing Board to the tune of a ceiling of $7.5 million. Since we've started the project, we've had a couple of funding opportunities interjected in the mix from a design perspective. The first being FCM's Green Municipal Building Fund from what they call their feasibility study phase. So we had about $85,000 from them, which covered our consultant fees or a portion of it as we went through the concept and schematic design phases. We've also allocated our former LSD CCBF allocation from 2023, which is about $188,000 and change, but to round it off, towards the remaining of the design elements, some site clearing, geothermal test well, some of the things that we've done since the start of this year. Our process so far and what we'll propose to continue is to absorb the professional services costs in the operating budget through these grants and then through our ongoing operating budget both this year and next. And then the main piece around funding is for the building itself. So the intent is to essentially do it in a long-term loan, a debenture through the Municipal Capital Borrowing Board and FCM. But that grant piece from FCM will be 15% of eligible costs. So that includes building costs and the professional services costs that haven't been absorbed in our operating budget so far. And then the remainder of FCM's funding comes in the form of a low interest loan to 80% of the costs, with the remaining 20% coming from at that point, MFC, or the Municipal Finance Corp. Right now, where we are at in terms of FCM funding is that it was heard at the Green Municipal Fund Council on Thursday, which there's about 1 million steps to go through these funding applications. There's the pre-application, it goes to a program officer, it passes that, it goes to peer review, goes from peer review to the technical team to look at the energy model, it goes from the technical team to the Green Municipal Fund Council, it goes from them, and then goes to FCM's executive committee. So essentially they're the executive positions on their overall board. We're at that point, and I won't necessarily hold them to it, but do expect an answer by Friday, is what we anticipate. At this point, we're comfortable with where it's at and how it's been progressing through the process, but still is pending their approval. Now, the exciting part is that the town issued the bids in early April and closed May 10th, I think was the date, mid-May, let's say, once there was a couple of extensions thrown into the mix. We received 5 bids for the project, and for a project of this scale, that is good news to have that much interest, and gives the town a good safety net, I would say, that there's interest in the project, which is to our benefit generally from a cost perspective. The other piece that's to our benefit is that the lowest and highest bids had a difference of just over 1 million. So it's 15% of the project cost for the lowest bid, which in a case like this also shows confidence in basically the drawings, in the design team's drawing. So thank you, Heather, and your crew, because what you can have for a project of this scale is some that are on the very low end and some that are on the very high end. And then it raises questions at this point where we would be going to lowest bidders and having conversations before we were in a position to bring it to council. Just in case there was anything that essentially was missed. Just to give some ballparks of where the recommended being the lowest bidder is at versus the median bid. So the average was about 7.3 in the median. So the third, the one that's right smack in the middle in this case, was at about 7.2. And like I mentioned, that proximity in bids does give us a level of confidence in the pricing and the bids that were received. And now we're at a point where, given the fact that the tender cost or the lowest bid cost is under the borrowing authority, where we have the ability to award a contract. Given the market that we see and that we know from other projects, there's always uncertainty there, and we did not anticipate being able to come to council this soon. We were a little bit worried when we were starting to open those envelopes, but it is good news from our perspective. And then just to give an idea of cost per square foot, it's at about 429 per square foot. The facility is just over 12,500 building area, so area on the land, and about just over 16,000 square foot in total, excluding the exterior walls. So with that, last but not least, is we have a recommendation on the floor to award this contract to the lowest bidder, and then ready for any questions that may arise based on the review or as any reminders for the project to date. With that, recommendation on the floor and pass it to you guys.
I'll move that council award SALS 2024-09 Salisbury Fire Rescue Station to Maxim Construction Incorporated for a maximum price of $6,911,000, excluding HST, and authorize administration and the design team to negotiate a CCDC2 contract pursuant to tender specifications and pending satisfactory delivery of all supplementary conditions, and authorize the clerk and mayor to sign and affix the corporate seal accordingly at such point that the contract has been finalized.
Seconded.
Moved by Councillor Blina, seconded by Councillor Thorne. Questions to the motion?
Maximum Construction, I'm not really familiar with them. What other work have they done?
They've done lots. So they have 2 headquarters, one in Nova Scotia, one in St. John. And they've actually done quite a few ICF buildings. So including some schools, they do lots of larger projects like that, but they're well established, I would say, for the commercial side of things.
So fire stations or something that.
I'm not sure if fire stations specifically, to be totally honest, but from their projects, like as part of the bid, they actually submitted like a statement of qualifications for schools, which are much more, or I should say not much more complicated, much larger in size from an ICF perspective.
They have a lovely website. Check it out.
Yeah, with lots of projects on there. Yeah.
You need to show that a good IT budget, is what you're saying.
Yeah, which means great things.
Coming from someone who would know.
Yeah, sure.
No additional questions, all in favor, contrary minded? Motion carried.
Oh,
11 minutes. There we go. There we go.
Okay, so with
Motion to
that,
adjourn?
we have a motion to adjourn, motion by Councilor Thorne, seconded by Deputy Mayor Plant. Questions to the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Meeting is adjourned.